a whole bunch of stuff. First, hey, congratulations.
Thank
My
you.
gosh, NBA title. That's so amazing.
Yeah, it is. It is pretty funny that, I'm at the arena right now and still smell like this big boys, the champagne and everything they gave us, but it's pretty cool.
Still dripping from the walls, are they?
I don't know. They clean, they clean the carpet, they re-clean. I think they're gonna change the carpet now, but it was good reminders,
That's great. I'm sorry we missed each other during the conference. Just I know you were probably bouncing back and forth between the Thomas and Mack Center and the conference, but thank you for attending my workshop.
Oh no, for sure. It was cool. It was really cool, and I know you were busy. Had a lot of questions and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
good to connect.
Yeah. Well, we can always talk shop if you want. I'm definitely up for that. I would just love to have an organic conversation, basically about. I read up on a little bit. There were some articles, and you talked about writing your goals down while you're at Northwest Oklahoma State.
Yep.
And how you've achieved those. So I would love to dive in there. I would love to talk about motor neurology and some of the brain drills that you're doing with your players, and then just strength conditioning and how you made up through the ranks from working in Denver to getting on as assistant coach and making your way up to head strength conditioning coach and performance director. How's that sound to you?
Great.
Cool.
Great. Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any questions for me before we begin?
No.
Right on.
Yeah. I mean, try to make this flawless so you don't have a lot of work to do.
Nah, that's all right. We do pretty well with that. All right. So I'm going to just do a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 countdown and we'll get going. So
Okay.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So this week we're going to the House of the Champions. In fact, before we hit record, it sounds like the champagne is still being dried out in the carpets and on the walls in Denver. I've got Felipe Eichenberger with me. He is the head strength conditioning coach or director of performance for the NBA champion Denver Nuggets. Felipe, welcome on to Zelos.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. Pleasure being here. Still champs, so.
Amazing. Honestly, I mean, to first time in the NBA to be champs, and those guys just went through everybody they came across. Now, of course, being a Boston native, even though I'm a California transplant, I was really hoping that my boys would be meeting you in the finals, but Miami had a way of playing the zone like no other. So, but it's good that you took them down. But I'm not going to get into the games or anything. I want to get into what you're doing. And you're from Sao Paulo, Brazil, right? Is that where you grew up?
Yeah, so I'm from Ribeirão Preto, São Paulo, Brazil, which is, São Paulo is the state and the capital, and I'm about, 4 hours away from the capital. But yeah, born and raised there, came here to United States to play college basketball in a small school in Oklahoma, where everything started. And the dream is to make the NBA, and as a player. And then kind of pretty early on, I was like, I think I'm good, but I think, the NBA might be a little out of reach as a player. But how can I get there? And, and I love working out and I love strength and conditioning. I think, everything worked out.
Well, okay. So first, how did you go from Brazil to Northwestern Oklahoma State? How did that happen?
Yeah, so I played in Brazil. Kind of like semi-pro, kind of like we don't have college and, high school sports in Brazil, competitive. And so I had to go to different teams. It would be like comparable to like AAUs. So to play more competitive. And then, there was a friend of mine, a really good friend of mine. We would wake up at 5 a.m., go shoot, and dream about going to the United States. And he was really good. So he came to United States. He was at Texas Tech. He was, different colleges, and he met my assistant coach at the time in Northwestern. And he said, "Where are you from? Do you have any friends?" I'm 6'6", 6'7". And my friend liked me, so he was just like, there's this guy. If you develop him, he can be pretty good. I think we fit in your system. And from that point on, I got recruited by a couple of schools, and then Oklahoma was the best fit.
Right on. Okay, now as I was reading a little bit background information, one of your coaches wanted you to write down your goals when you got to Northwestern, and you weren't sure what those were the freshman year, but maybe by sophomore year you kind of nailed it. What's your goal?
Yeah, so it was pretty interesting because language barrier, speaking Portuguese, coming to the United States, having to learn English, the right way, because you get players from all over the country, the accents and stuff like that. So it's pretty hard. But anyway, so every year he started our meeting saying, there's a sheet of paper, write your goals down and see if we can achieve. I want season goal, 3 goals for the season. And I wanted, my goal, his goal as a coach was to teach us for life. So he wanted season goals, he wanted like a 5-year goal and then a 10-year goal. So there's like all 3 goals for each category. And, I had my season goals, like, average X amount of points, X blocks or whatever. And then my 5-year goal was graduate, become a strength coach. And, and then my 10-year goal was work for a professional team or a basketball team. And I think I wrote that twice, 2 years in a row. And then, like kind of the 3rd and 4th years, I had a different coaches. So like it was a little bit things done different, but like my first 2 years, my freshman year, I really didn't know. And then my second year was like, yeah, this is what's happening, and it was funny that like, you don't think that matters, but I wrote it down, forgot about it, was in my locker, but I kind of forgot about it. And then as I graduated, I was like, after when I moved into my new house that I bought, I had my 10-year goal to be number 1, be, a head strength coach for a professional team, for a basketball team. The second one was buying a house. And I don't remember a third one, but like I was like, moving to the new house, that's where I found the goals, and I was doing both at the same time. Like at that time, I just moved into the new house. So that was kind of cool, a cool story, from the goal sheet that I remember doing it.
I love it. Yeah. There's so many times where we think, oh, it's somewhat innocuous, somewhat kind of basic to write things down, but boy, that plants a seed. So you get out of school and you start peppering some of the coaches in the NBA. As I understand, you just start calling day after day, week after week for several months until they finally got tired of you and they gave up and they said, okay, yeah, come on over and let's see what you can do. Is that essentially what happened?
Yeah. So I did an internship in Las Vegas. So graduated literally next day, drove to Las Vegas, was like a 12-hour drive or something like that, with all my stuff in the back, knowing that I got an internship. Did an internship with Las Vegas that goes from like kids all the way to the pros. So, like they have 15 pros, playing pickup ball every day at noon. Like, so with that experience, I know I was going to Denver. I met a lot of the Denver Nuggets players there. And I got the phone number for the head strength coach here, Steve Haas. And I was just like, I gotta call this guy. And then, I call him in the morning and he was like, answer, because the funny story is, I think that one of the big time players at the time gave him my number. They're like, hey, this guy's gonna call you, make sure you answer somehow. But he kept like kind of answering my calls, So, I would call in the morning. He's like, oh, call me later. And I was like, okay. So I'll call him in the evening. Like I feel like when people say call me later, it's call me like in a year or in a month or something like that, but like every day I'll call him in the morning. He's like, call me later. It's like, okay, at 6 p.m. I'll call him again. It's like, hey, you told me to call you later. It's like, oh yeah. Oh, call me tomorrow. I was like, okay. So I'll call him in the morning, call him later. They went off for like 3 months. And he couldn't, like, sometimes he answers, sometimes he didn't answer, but I kept calling. And then he said, like, it's like, like, there's nothing with the team. I have an assistant, but I have a gym downtown. My players go there sometimes. Do you want to be a personal trainer? And I was like, well, I want to be a strength coach, but like whatever opportunity you give me, I'll take it, like brand new to the area, to the field. And so he helped me to get a personal training job at his gym, and that's kind of like how it started. And, I think it was the best thing that ever happened to me, like personal training. Like people don't say like, oh man, you're in the NBA, you're a strength coach, but like I think personal training, it's pretty cool. Like you learn a lot of about people's body lives, and like they work so hard for you. You see like gains very often versus working with professional athletes. So that was the first step of my career. And then kind of flipping the page, there was a lockout year, and then from the lockout year, the assistant for the Nuggets left, and then I've been working for the gym in the gym for like a year, 2 years. So he was just like, "Hey, there's an opportunity. Would you be interested?" And then I kind of, interview for it, was around a little bit for, and it kind of happened. So.
Wow. First of all, your English is phenomenal. The fact that you learned it when you moved here, I'm blown away by that. I thought you grew up speaking two languages because you you've got a great grasp on the English language. So phenomenal. And I love stories of these people that write down their goals and plant a seed, and they follow through, whether they're realizing it or not. It's taking them down this path. And here you are now. Steve moves aside, 3-4 seasons ago, and you've been the head strength coach since then. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was about 6 years ago.
6.
Yeah, so I've been here for 12 years. So I was the assistant for 6 years. And now, the head strength coach, director performers, for 6 years. So,
So for the listening audience, how do you separate director of performance and head strength coach? What are the roles that separate? Obviously, I mean, head strength conditioning coach, we kind of understand. You're in the gym with the guys, you're putting the programs together, you've got your assistants laying out the entire season worth and so on. But what more roles are on your shoulders now that you're director of performance?
was more like a title thing, than just like more responsibility, because like when I took I took over for Steve, we were dealing with nutrition and the food, and like all those things were part of it. And I think by being the director, you more like feels like you trust the person, or you have a department that you direct them what you do more than you just the head strength coach. I think kind of like that's kind of like the only difference. But I mean, the responsibilities are kind of like the same, and I of course added a lot more responsibilities. But I think like people see like the head strength coach do the program, but like the director of performance, the I don't know. Well, I tell you one thing, like the communication with the head coach changed. So like, like when you perform, what you do, and I don't know if that came with the title, if it came with a relationship.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah. Okay. So with you mentioned science, how much is sports science coming to the forefront with your team specifically? Like, do you have a dedicated sports scientist that you're working with within your team?
I do. So there are 3 strength coaches here, and with our organization. Me, myself, and Klaus. No, me, Ernie, and Klaus. And we do have the strength coach to do the sports science, right? So we had two positions like for the last 5-6 years. One was just for the sports science. One was the strength coach plus he does sports science. And I think it works a lot better if somebody's doing the strength and conditioning plus do some of the sports science. Just because if you have just the sports science itself, it's just like it just becomes a little bit weird,
Yeah, there's a disconnect in a way, right? And like
Yes,
how
yeah.
do you apply it? by being in the gym, in the weight room and utilizing the sports science, you actually go like, oh, this is the information that we really need. This other stuff is great data, but it's just noise for the time being. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, yes, yes. And I mean, I feel like when you're just the sports science and it's just like you can do a lot, but you're not involved with the training. You know what I mean? Like I love the way that we have it now because my theory as a strength coach is it's not because I'm the head strength coach, I'm gonna train the best player. And you are the assistant, you're gonna train, player 14, 15, 16. Like my theory is just like, hey, here's the plan for the day, here's the plan for the week. And whoever walks in first, let's put them through their own workout. So like the best player is gonna walk in, he played, this week he's played 33 minutes a game for the last 3 games. So he's gonna have a mobility routine. If I'm available, I'll go get him. But if my assistant is available, you go get him. Like we all know the workout. We all know what he's supposed to do. And then whoever gets whoever, it's just, it's there, So I that's kind of like what I believe in, at least in the NBA, how it works. Other organizations, they have like groups, like this is your group of 3 players, this is a group of 5 players, but I believe that just like we are all equal, and you have to build a relationship with the whole team. So
yeah, now that makes complete sense, because if one person is out and they're responsible for these players, there's going to be a breakdown in communication for the other team members by sharing a load. It's actually what we do in my studio here. Is no one is dedicated to one specific client. It's the system that they come in to train with, and
Yep.
the trainers themselves have bought into the system. They understand how it works. So there's very little hiccups going on. It sounds like that's the same thing in the Nuggets organization.
yes, I'll affirm that for sure.
So I think we have a couple other things in common. One is we love geeking out, from the
Oh, yeah.
sounds of it, on motor neurology and brain training. And I think, I mean, for myself, I don't know how long you've been doing it, but like organizations like Z Health Education System with Dr. Eric Cobb, I've been following his track for quite a while and doing certifications in there, and really homing in on visual drills, reaction drills, vestibular drills. I know you've got some tools there. We use the Blaze pods either on suction cups on the mirror, on the floor, on countertops, wherever out in the field. What kind of tools do you have when it comes to brain training, and what are the go-tos for you when it comes to the NBA players?
I would say all the above. Like we have Blaze pods, we have all those things. But I have to make something clear. That's like because I feel like people get lost on a lot of things, right? I'm a strength coach. So I'm the kind of guy that I do believe in strength and conditioning. So the guys come in, like new players come in, I'll tell them right away, you're going to move some weight. You're going to do, you are going to do a trap bar deadlift with 225, 305. Like you are moving weight. That's the only way you're going to get stronger, right?
Hallelujah.
Yeah. So it's like the overload principle haven't changed in how many years, right? So
Right.
that's kind of like what I made clear with my athletes. It's just like, is it going to be an hour session? No, sometimes it's going to be 10 minutes. Sometimes it's going to be 30, sometimes it's going to be an hour and a half. So it depends on the player, depends on the situation, but you are going to touch dumbbells. You're going to touch weights every single time you come to the weight room. Anyway, so that's just to make it clear as our program looks, right? And then we start adding tools to help with performance, right? What I found out is that I can do whatever I want to do, but the players are here for a reason, right? They're very talented and they can play at this level, right? So how can I make them a little bit better on something that they don't know yet? And that's where I start looking into neuro training, start looking into oxygenation, like we do, some stuff with the oxygen, breathing, like sleep and stuff like that. So with the brain training that we do, we have this, it's called the edge. It's like a board. It's pretty much like a hand and eye coordination reaction, and gives you the results when you did, you have a task of like 4 exercises. It's pretty quickly. And then you test during the season, or you just do exercise before you do a strength exercise. And I feel like that kind of helps the guys to like focus a little bit more mentally, versus just doing the strength exercise that we have. So I think it's a progression, and it's kind of like joining the strength and conditioning with your brain. It's just like, it's not that your brain stopped working when you're lifting weights, but working at different weights, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. So to get a little bit more into the nitty gritty of that, sometimes I will take my clients, athletes, and I will have them do a lift and follow it up with some type of reaction drill or neuro drill. And it may not be quick movements. It could be as subtle as tracking, like eye tracking across a field or in a direction that we have assessed that they're weak. And so we're going to feed into that, almost like you're going to do a muscular lift to fatigue that area, and then you're going to do a neural lift to fatigue that in the hopes of it getting stronger. Is that kind of your approach to some degree, or do you throw it at the beginning, at the end, in between? How does it work for you typically?
Depends on the time. I like to throw it right after a heavy exercise, for example. So we do like, hey, let's do a trap bar deadlift, like 6 reps. And then right after, you're just gonna go and do some hand and eye coordination things. So what I'm trying to mimic is, you're in the game, you run, and all of a sudden you have to shoot a free throw, or you run, and all of a sudden you have to make a decision. Do I pass or do I shoot? And I think all those things are just like, you have to start thinking about those things. That happens with experience. Like, as you play more, you're going to start learning the game more. But at the same time, I feel like we can wake up and train the brain to be prepared for that moment. So if that makes sense.
Oh, total sense. I'm curious, is there some type of, well, first, how easy is the buy-in for your players? And second, do you use any type of assessment, reassess, to see if there's some validity to this? Or is it just kind of, we're going to kind of create a new recipe and see what the product turns out to be?
No, they, like the main thing that we use is the edge board. That, like, we can travel with it as well. It's not that big. And that gives us a very quick assessment. And then we train, and then we can assess every couple of weeks. We try to assess like every 2 or 3 weeks, but with like win games and schedules and travel, it's hard, but yes, so that's kind of like the main thing that we use with that. We start to apply a little bit of VR stuff too, like where they can see the game that they play and the decision that they made, to kind of rethink the decision. But that's kind of like more the hand and eye coordination that we use with the vision board, the edge board that we have.
Got it. Now, we were both at the NSCA National Conference last week in Vegas. You happened to be coinciding with the NBA Summer League. But I'm not sure if you stepped into Boo Snyder's hands-on, but he was doing a lot of pairing up some type of lift or body motion, some strength, immediately followed by a sprint. And
Yes.
He would have his athletes, his LSU track and field, obviously, is his background, but that's what he was doing with his sprinters. He wasn't doing an overabundance of running with them, but he was getting them to prepare for different situations. And so it sounds a little bit about like what you're doing with the brain drills, the same style. Are there other kind of elements? You mentioned oxygenation and sleep. Are there things that we're kind of overlooking, in your opinion, when it comes to strength conditioning of athletes?
No, I mean, I think I do believe that a lot of athletes, or a lot of professional athletes, they are undertrained, conditioning wise.
How so? What do you mean?
I think they get used to like play their minutes, and they're very comfortable playing their minutes. And as soon as their minutes are end, not a lot of athletes can produce on the extra minutes that they have to play. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
So I have a player that plays, let's suppose, 20 minutes. And he knows that like 20-minute mark, if he goes like 22, that's fine. But then we go to overtime, he got to go to 30. That might be just like, wow, I never done this before. He will play, he'll perform, but I don't think his performance as well as he was like comfortable 20 minutes that he's playing. But then the next couple of days, he's just like, it messes him up, just like he's more tired, he's more fatigued. And I don't think he should be that fatigued because he should be else prepared,
Yeah. So what do you do?
Pretty much like, just like I try to prepare the players for them always like, I have kind of three buckets, like the starters, they stay ready, and the development group. I try to put everybody to like, hey, you gotta like, I want to have two buckets. They stay ready and the starter. The starters are the starters, they're for a reason, you know what I mean? All that. And you only change honestly in the league on the NBA if somebody get injured. But it's really hard to see like a player that's just like, hey, I am a six-man, go and start for the whole season. But you know what I mean? So like I have kind of like two buckets, like the stay ready guys is just like, hey, we're gonna play, we're gonna prepare to play not your 20 minutes, you're gonna prepare to play 30, 40, 50, and then and just kind of like always be ready to play. Like 50 minutes, like if you prepare for 50 minutes, you're not gonna play 50 minutes. Not even the game is 50 minutes, but you got to be ready to play the 30. So that's kind of like different things that we do, that we try to do to make sure they're ready.
Does that also carry over for the length of the season? Let's say like in this particular year, of course, you went all the way through June, but other years it may be that you stop in late April because team, for whatever reason, doesn't make it past or into the playoffs. Like, do you have players that you see they're going to be great through the preseason, in season, but now they're fatiguing, and of course that's the last thing you want as a performance director, is for their performance to start to drop just when you're entering playoff season. But do you see that at all? Hopefully the answer is no, but
yeah, like I said, I define those guys are just like, they're like aliens. Like you see some stuff that's like incredible, right? So I had situations that we had to stop practice because this guy hit his chin bone to the rim. So like, you know what I'm saying? Like those things happen.
Oh, that happens to me all the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
I hate it when my head hits the rim.
That's what I'm saying. So it's just like, there are things like that you're just like kind of like, whoa, like there's like even like one of the starters this year going to the playoffs, he's like, man, I'm like, it's a week before the playoffs, I'm running a mile and I'm lifting in the morning, and then the evening I'm running another mile and shooting for an hour, and I'm like, that's not the time, like what are you doing, like. But then, after 4 or 5 days and we're back in the playoffs, he's the best guy in shape. Like, you're just like, so it's just like, it's hard to say with this type of athletes because they're so, above average that, like what you do with them is only going to make a little bit of change, So,
well, how stressful is that for you, where you're basically trying to create these recipes for success, and your workplace is also your classroom, because this is an art, and
yep.
even though it is science, it's an unknown, relatively young science. So I know you're not the type of guy to just throw something at the wall and see what sticks. There's got to be some substantial reasoning for implementing things, and yet at the same time, we're talking about multi-million-dollar players. We're talking about now a championship franchise here. I mean, that's got to be a little stressful, is it?
Yeah, it is a lot of pressure, right? But I think
How do you
also
deal with
like,
that?
so I think where I am and what I do is I build a really good trust with the players. So they trust what I do. and I trust them back. So it's just like, for example, the guy that's running a mile, I'm educating him why it's not might be a good idea. And then he's just like, what do you should do? What do you think I should do? I was like, well, let's train together. Let's do all those things. Don't do it at your house. So I can control what you do. And he, like that comes to trust. He's like, okay, cool. Let's do it. And then that trust just just kind of like, you can just like listen to the player, and he feels he's listening to you, you care, and then it just build something that's like go to the next level. I feel like the trust is the big part, if that makes sense.
Makes complete sense. Yeah. I mean, trust is going to give you the buy-in you need, but it's a two-way street. So
Yep.
yeah, it makes complete sense. We spoke about the summer league, and I'm curious. I was able to get over for a game last Wednesday night. Just happy as could be, seeing my Celtics beat the Lakers. Couldn't have been a better dream of mine. But I'm looking around, I'm going, how much time do you actually get to communicate with other peers of yours in the Thomas and Mack Arena when you're in Vegas? Like, was there any time for you to connect with other performance directors or strength coaches, or are you just there, you're working with the players, and then you got to get back to headquarters and you got to do this and that? I mean, did you have any time to do that?
Yeah. So we have a NBSCA. It's the the National Basketball Association for Strength Conditioning Coaches, which is it was created 10 years ago, so it's not like that old, but like it's old enough where now there's a lot of attractions, and we have events. Like in Vegas, we had a Top Golf event where like we had over 50 strength coaches there, just like for the NBA and like all those things. So we're getting a lot tighter. And that's where we kind of communicate, because I mean, when you play, depends the teams that you play. Like sometimes we play the East team, like I'll see the Boston Celtics strength coach twice a year. So it's hard to build a relationship, like when you meet in the middle. I mean, they're in town, maybe in a back-to-back, and you want to get lunch, and like he wants you to sleep. So it's just like, but we have two events. We have the Combine in Chicago, and we have in Las Vegas, we have another event. So those are, like times that we communicate. Those are times that we talk. So.
Right on. Yeah, Isaiah's a good guy.
Yeah.
So, and then of course, being in Vegas, national conference, where I know you were able to get over there. Anything that were take homes for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think your presentation was really good about the foot wedges and stuff like that.
I didn't ask for you to just throw that in there. But I appreciate it, but that's really cool. I wasn't asking for that reason.
I think it was, because I think it was the first day. I think, like in the morning, mid-afternoon, people were fresh. They're kind of into it. But, it's an easy way for you to like not fix, but try to, I hate the word fix, but like, like kind of like to fix the compensation without doing too much. You know what I'm saying? So totally. I feel like people overthink about like all those things that you can do on the body that you think is gonna work, but it's just like, hey, listen, you can use your sock, like for your example, like, you know what I mean? Like you can buy this $15 device of like wedges, or you can use your sock, or you can use a towel, or you can use whatever. Just pay attention to this, and this. So I do think it was like pretty straightforward. With the science, that you start with the science, and then was pretty straightforward on here are the things that I look at. Here's why. And it's at the end of the day, it's not because it's an ego thing and I do this way. It's just because it works for my clients. I just want to help people. Like that's what I got out of your presentation. I think Duncan French had a really good presentation too about decision making. Decision making, like how they make the decision at the UFC headquarters and things like that. It was pretty cool. So, and nice. I watched probably like 10, 15 of them. And I think like I can take away a little bit of each, which we know what I try to do.
Right on. Okay. When it comes to injuries, let's go there for a second. We've got high hamstring pulls, we'll say low back, and ankle inversion sprains. There's definitely going to be other things that pop up, but those are typically like top three when we're talking NBA players. How do you reduce the likelihood of injuries when it comes? And we don't need to go specifically into these specific symptoms or injuries themselves, because I know we're not going to try and isolate, but what's in your bag of, I won't say tricks, what's in your program design that's going to help reduce the likelihood of those type of occurrences with basketball players?
Yeah, I mean, I love that you use the word reduce, right? Because a lot of people say, how do I avoid injury? And I'm just like, go to church, pray. But but we started like about 5 years ago. We started a program that's called the Daily Vitamins. Pretty much like, daily vitamins. You take a pill, it take care of all the vitamins. But with our PTs, with our group, our medical staff, we have those daily vitamins. That's like somehow the players are gonna get what they need to try to reduce the amount of, the ankle sprain. Like reducing means like if you sprain your ankle, there's a high probability you're a basketball player, but instead of being a grade 3, it's going to be a grade 0 or grade 1. So but that's kind of like how it works. So we'll go from like the training room, you're going to do a little bit there, and then you're going to go upstairs, you're going to follow up with that, and then you're going to follow up with your weights, and then you're going to do a little bit on the before the warm up. You also do a little bit. Before we used to do groups, so like the hip group, the foot group, the knee group, the shoulder group, and then that kind of like became a little bit like too much, but now I would say like we kind of microdose, and the training room, weight room, warm up, and kind of ready to go, and still, so instead of having like, hey, we're going to have a 25 30-minute session on ankle stability, we just do as a whole, like, okay, so it's going to be 5 minutes here, 8 minutes here, 5 minutes here. What's the total of that? What's the total of the week? And that's kind of like the amount of things that we're trying to get.
Got it. Okay. And then when it comes to their workout routines, when they're on the road versus when they're home in Denver, how does that vary? Obviously, the hotels will have facilities, or the organizations will allow you to use other facilities, but do you bring, bands, balls, kettlebells, or something along with you? Or is there a travel kit that you take? And if so, what's in your kit?
Yeah, so we do travel with, like a big bag of equipment, just because the hotels that we stay are pretty nice, but a lot of times the nice means they don't have the things that we need. Like sometimes we stay at the Four Seasons, and the Four Seasons, they trying to look good, so they put like machines everywhere, brand new machines, shiny, but it's like that's not what you're looking for. Like like give me a couple heavier dumbbells and like a barbell will be fine, but like they think you want the shiny thing. But so we do travel on what we need, right? So we have bands, all resistance and mini bands. We have the Encore that helps us a lot. That's pretty much like a cable pulley system. We have the K box that we travel with us, so we have a lot of the eccentric load. And I mean, those kind of like are the things that supplement us so we can train on the road, But I also, I like to look at blocks as the strength coaches do. But the way I look at blocks is just like, all right, so we are home for 7 days straight, and that's going to be the heavy block for the players, and then we're going to go on the road for 5 days, and that's going to be the supplements, going to be more the daily vitamins, the movements that we do with the players. So that's kind of like how we, looking now at being 12 years in the league, I mean, I know where we stay, what we have, and like hotels and stuff like that, and varies just by a little bit a lot of times. But that's kind of like how we deal with this stuff.
And how much, when we talk about like strength training, loading the body, do you vary away from the sagittal plane? Like how much do you load frontal and transverse actions. Is that something that is tapered down? You just go through the movements, maybe with resistance bands, or are you loading the body with dumbbells and kettlebells or barbell for that matter, and breaking away from that sagittal action?
With the players, they gonna, regardless what they do, because the sport, they're gonna get all the directions naturally, So I always had in my mind, the biggest question is still the biggest question in my mind, right? So kind of like going back a little bit, well, to answer your questions, yes, we do load in different, directions. However, a lot of times we don't overcoach. We also let the athlete naturally do what they do, because then you have to pick and choose. Is it worth these athletes be doing this for X amount of years? If you're going to correct, or if you're going to try to do something with their body, a lot of things will change. And what's his main goal? To play basketball. And I bet you, if I get one of my starters, to do a RDL a different way than what he's used to, and he can play for 3 games, you're going to take the heat, So what I mean with that is just like there is a fine line between, making them better, correct them, versus loading them and making them strong on what they are comfortable at, So we will load, for example, we will load to make you stronger where you are, but then you're going to follow by a unload it or somehow to correct or put you this place that you're supposed to be for longevity, So if that makes sense. Yeah.
It does. All right. So within the NFL, the preseason is quite short in regards to turning up for summer camp and the preseason games. And some would argue that there isn't enough time to build up resiliency. The impact, body against body, builds up tissue resiliency, and therefore it reduces the likelihood of injury. But if you don't have enough time of training that type of contact, the likelihood of injury is actually higher. So within the NFL, for several years now, we see a spike in injuries during the preseason. I bring that up because I'm wondering, what's your take on the length of preseason for the NBA? Because you guys are starting pretty darn soon, like in a couple of weeks, right? Through August, and then August and September, and then first games are in October. Is that correct?
Yes. So it's always like a hustle, because players go away. Like nobody lives in Denver. There's no one player that playing 17 players. They're from Denver. They live in Denver, and the roster, right? So as soon as the season ends, luckily this year was after the parade, but players go California, New York, Miami, like they're out. So it's really hard to get them to come back here, just because, like I would rather be in Miami than be in Denver. I love Denver, but like Miami's a better weather, it's Miami. So what we try to do is before the preseason, we try to have a preseason, so it's just like for the younger guys, they have to be here on like early August, Monday through Thursday. Friday is like a fun day, which is Red Rocks, which is not fun at all for them. And then you go back home, you do whatever, come back Monday morning, and we go this way. But that's challenging for the vets because they don't want to come back here. So we travel, go train them in LA, go train, like in Serbia, go train them in like different parts of the country and the world to make sure when they come back, they are not going from, doing not much to like ramping up to the preseason, because the preseason in the NBA went from like a full month to maybe like, I don't even know, like it's a 3-week deal, but within the 3 weeks you play games, like, so like our preseason now starts in, I think October 2nd, October 7th is our preseason game, the first preseason game.
All right. So I don't want to throw you under the bus, but what's your opinion on that?
I see why they do that way.
Yeah.
Because they focus so much on the season, where like it's all the shiny lights where the money is and things like that. But I think like right now it's been hard for the last, I feel like last I've been here for 12 years, but I feel like it was harder before to understand. But now players really understand that's just like they will leave us alone. But if I don't do anything, I pay the price later. Right.
Hmm.
So I think it's just like it's not essential at all. Like we want at least 8 to 9 weeks with the players here, training with us, doing the stuff, doing basketball, playing 5-on-5, and kind of have that progression. And as soon as you hit training camp, you're pretty much like in training camp shape to play the season, play the games later on. But that never happens like the way they're supposed to happen. My opinion is like, is it the right way? No, but it's the way that works in the NBA.
Sure. And the summer league, how does that come into play with you? I mean, obviously the starters aren't at the summer league. You've got the talent that you're looking at, bringing them up to either the G League or for the big show. But how does that fold in with your role?
So, summer league is interesting and it's cool because you can see the young talent, and then it's Las Vegas. Like players want to go to Las Vegas, and the NBA does a really good job on having events for the players there, having meetings and things like that. So we do get, like a handful more than that, depends on the team, of vets there. So that's like your first contact after the season with the players that play the whole season. So just they come in, we have courts, we have the weight room, they train with us for a short amount period of time, 4 or 5 days, but at least you're training with the group, what you're trying to achieve. So that's an important block for us. And then, after that is like, all right, so now maybe take a vacation for 2 weeks, come back in August, and then August start like August, September, start going like those trips to go see the guys.
Right on. Okay, you're entering a new season, of course, with a cool title. And I'm going to ask you about the parade in a moment because I want to hear, because I saw some posts of you and it looks like you had one hell of a time. But you're entering a new season. What's going to be different with your programming this year compared to that year? Or nothing's going to change really because it really worked well and got you guys where you needed to go?
Well, it's the old say, like you can never really stay the same, right? You either get better or you get worse. So I think the program that we have, the foundation, is pretty solid. The players know what they're doing. We have like, each player on their own program. But I think we're gonna work a lot more with oxygen this year. Like the breathing is gonna be a lot better program. I'm gonna dig in a lot more in VBT, where like the load sometimes can be sporadic with the guys, but I want to be like, okay, so we're gonna do a little bit more VBT where we know where it's supposed to be, because of time sometimes my point guard is lifting the same weight as the post player, and I don't like that. That's not how it's done. But like, how can we be close to specific to what you need versus just like, we just got to get this done. Let's move so we can travel to the next city, So that's you. And then, like, I think that's just like focus a lot on recovery, and the oxygen stuff is just like, like we have this company come in that they, it's pretty much like a high-low training conditioning where, you put a mask on. It's like more like a hack, but pretty much like you do your conditioning in the higher altitude, even higher than Denver. And then we go for 30 seconds and then you flip the switch and you get like 5 to 6 times more oxygen than what you need. So it's pretty much like, like a switch that you flip. I think that will help our guys a lot.
Have you personally tried that?
Yes.
What's it
Yes.
like?
It's hard. It's hard. But,
Yeah.
that's where the thing for us is with the minimum amount of time. And by the way, I don't know, basketball players, they hate conditioning. If you put them on the treadmill, you're asking to be fired. But, if they play basketball, cool, that's their conditioning. But if you put them in the treadmill, they'd be like, look at you. And they're like, well, let's do the bike. And you're just like, all right. And they do the bike half-assed, but like that's their nature. They want to play basketball. So anyway, so this device is going to help us to there's the protocol. It's a bike protocol. We're gonna do a no impact today. Cool. It's a no impact. It's 8, 12 minutes, maybe 20. You know what I mean? Like we can get, can get an 8-minute mark, what we would do in like a 35, 40 minutes. So for us, it's just like something that will help.
Yeah, sure. Okay, and then at the conference there were a couple presenters talking about blood flow restriction. Have you been delving into that at all, aside from what you've just mentioned?
We have. So I leave that up more to the medical side where we do like a lot of load and stuff like that, just because, like I said, I like to load the guy, like I hate to be like, hey, you're gonna do a trap bar deadlift, you're supposed to go at close to 100% today, but you have to go to, very light because you have to do BFR. So, like the medical staff does a great job. We do BFR with the guys pretty much, daily, depends on recovery or training. And then, I kind of take care more like all the weights, but we do utilize a lot.
Okay, so it's not exclusive just to the return to play athletes. You're having everyone utilize it to some degree.
Yes.
All right.
And I mean, and the biggest thing is the recovery. I mean, the players like it, love it. The players do before the game. So that's a big aspect.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
What is it about the blood flow restriction that they like? Just a pump that they get?
Yeah, like how you feel like right before the game. It's like it's they like it. It's just like it feels warm, it feels like solid, it feels like you're ready to go. So you utilize a lot.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, last question, Felipe. The parade, man, your victory parade going down. What was that like? This little kid growing up in Brazil is now standing on top of a float with the NBA title, going through the streets of Denver, and the first ever NBA victory parade in that city. Put it into words.
It was cool. I mean, just being part of, everything started like right after the game and you won, you're celebrating, and it's cool, right? Champagne, everybody hugging each other, everybody loves each other. That's professional sports. If you win, everybody loves each other. If you lose, you get fired. But it's just like that is the cool part, right? And you're like, man, this is so cool. It cannot get any cooler than this. And then you go in fire trucks. And then there is, like they say, there's like, I don't know, 750,000 people in the streets to see it. And it just becomes just like the magical. It's the coolest thing ever. It was magical, man. It was so cool. The city of Denver, the fans, and like just any sports fans, supporting us. And it was cool. It feels like you achieve something, like as soon as you like hit the parade and you see all those peoples and screaming and like high fives and everybody's just having a good time. I think it feels like real when you hit like the parade, and like when the parade is done, you're just like, I want to do it again, like I want to do it again. But I think that's like, for me, that's a motivation, right? Like as soon as we go in and literally there's like a group of like thousands of people, and then there's a cutoff where like the trucks go in, and you're just like, man, this is it, and it's just like, I want to do it again. Like that's why I see people like, man, I want to win again, I want to win another title. Like that's how I take it. Like I don't want to go back and do it like the same parade. I want to do it next year, how big it can be next year. So it was magical, it was awesome. And like that's what motivated me and will motivate me next year. Be like, I want to be in that parade again. So
well, I mean, dude, you've got the talent on the court and off the court to make that a reality. And when it comes to goal setting, we know you're pretty darn good at it. So that's great. I wish you the best with that. And you've been so generous with your time. Here's where we just ask for the up and coming strength coaches or those that are the veterans and so on that just want to follow your path and your exploits. Where can they go? Like your Instagram, LinkedIn, Nuggets website. I'll throw in the connections in the description, but how's the best way to follow what you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, I have my Instagram and things like that, but before, for all those coaches coming up, it's just like just a message where if you got into strength and conditioning for a reason, and a lot of people can say like, the reason is not to make money, and might be true, but be ready to work for free, be ready to do all those things, and so you can be a strength coach, but be passionate about what you do, and like just believe in your dreams and you have a chance to get there. It's like, it's not easy, it's not quick. I'm pretty sure, like we were talking right now, like, like you've been in the industry for so long and you go to like a national strength conditioning presentation in Las Vegas, then you're just like, damn, I gotta change my game, but I've been doing this for so long, like, so it's just like, it's always like a learning thing. And it's just like, if you want to be a strength coach, be prepared to do whatever, and then just follow your dreams, so that's kind of like the message for the young strength coaches or anybody out there that want to be where I am or be something better. And you can follow me on Instagram. My handle is like Eichbra. I think Eichbra. So yeah, I mean, any messages or any whatever, I answer to everybody. So
Fantastic, man. I can't thank you enough for coming on. This has been a blast. And honestly, good, even coming from a Celtics fan, good luck this coming season. I really hope that my boys and yours will meet a few more times next year than they did this year. So good luck.
Thank you.